Good morning, everyone. Just wait for just a couple more people, just let everyone sort of log in and get ready. Just give everyone a couple of seconds while they're logging in.
Morning, Seb.
Morning, Bex. You okay?
Yes, I'm good, thank you. Are you?
Yeah, not bad at all. Thank you very much.
Good. Looking forward to this session.
Yep, very much so. So let people sort of log in a minute as coming through. I can still see they're still coming in as we speak. So
perfect. I am going to mute myself because I have a very noisy dog here. So for everybody else's sake, I will put myself on mute.
No problem at all.
Thanks, Seb.
That's all right. No worries. Lovely. So I think I've just slowed up now. So yeah, let's get started. So yeah, good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to attend this morning. Pleased to be able to provide obviously this session with you this morning in partnership with Conveyancing Data Services and Apex, of course, and obviously Red Brick Solutions. So a big thank you to them for allowing me to do this. Just to really want to give you an overview really on how sort of mining and natural ground hazards are ever changing, and that's due to adverse weather along with sort of climate change supporting that. But also, I suppose the main one for you guys is how we can help support all you conveyancers and solicitors out there with, I suppose, carrying out these checks prior to any issues arising for your clients. So what I want to cover over with today is really just a little bit of info on Terrafirma. So as in sort of trusting us, the experts in sort of mining and natural ground hazards. And then what I've done is just put together a couple of areas, target areas across the country of England and Wales, and really just going through the risks that some of those regions tend to face with certain ground hazards and mining, and also some case studies really to support that. And then at the end, we'll have a nice Q&A session in which you can feel free to answer any questions. Just a bit of sort of coverage before. You may see that obviously the session is recorded today, so that is for obviously training and quality purposes, and also for those that can't attend today. So that recording can be sent out at a later date by either myself or Bex with that. And also you'll see the Q&A function either at the top or bottom of your screen, depending on how it shows, in which you'll be able to ask the questions to me at the end of the session. Obviously, I'll do my very best to answer them for you. So with Terrafirma, our core values have essentially stayed the same. It's not changed since we first formed. So our vision is very much to sort of transform how we understand the ground, and by we mean everyone in the conveyancing process. Our team, for those of you who don't know, it's not essentially customer service based. It's all of our team are experts and qualified geologists in their own right. So we have a growing multidisciplinary team. Their fields being sort of geoscientists, soil scientists, geotechnical and mining engineers, as well as geospatial data specialists and computer scientists. So you can really see the expertise that we have behind the scenes that help us really sort of innovate and push forward in the market with the information and reports that we provide. And as I touched on, sort of alongside our vision, our goal is to always help people and businesses understand their exposure to the risk of damage, disruption, and financial loss from relevant geohazards across the country. So really helping you in that front. And what that allows us to do by having those core values and those team of expertise is giving us the tools to, I suppose, deal with any sort of kind of issues with third-party data. So one being, data essentially being geology data, mining data, coastal erosion, essentially. So everything that we provide in our reports, we retrieve all that information. What we then do is rather than just sort of putting that in, sort of gathering that information and just throwing it in the reports for you all to view, of course, we then go through sort of like a quality check is probably the best way to describe it, in the sense that it then goes through our expertise. So whether they're backgrounds being geology, geosciences, soil science, etc. They'll review that. And then by using their skills, whether they be in geoprocessing, quality assurance and data analysis, it then allows us to provide a more concrete report, which I suppose, one, helps us be more accurate, 2 being the fact that the data we're providing is correct and up to date, and also 3 being the one that, because we're evaluating that data, we've got the very best information in there for you. So it really makes us have a more granular reports when going out to market. And obviously then probably having a greater appreciation of the strengths and weaknesses that are available to various ground data. And then essentially what that then revolves in is being able to make quality products. So it's a formula we like to follow, and a focus that we claim to have, which is hazards times exposure equals risk. So the hazard being obviously whether it be natural or sort of mining related, the exposure obviously being property, of course, and development sites, and then being able to outcome the risk. So the likelihood of the negative or positive, should I say, outcome likely to damage or financial loss on the property or the landowner. So my first case sort of care area, should I say, that I'd like to focus on is the southeast. Obviously, a lot of people probably wouldn't associate the southeast with being particularly hazardous in terms of ground hazards, but as you can see from this map originally, so substance is probably one big main issue. What you can see here, or I suppose the best way to describe that is clays within soils can sort of shrink and swell depending on the amount of water within their structure. So as you can imagine, sort of the colder, wetter winters that we're having, then going into obviously the spring, summer, and getting those really hot summers, you can imagine that the ground is really ever changing on that front. And what this map is really indicating is that those darker colours, so the more red or the darker red, indicates sort of the greater risk that these areas have to subsidence as a whole, and obviously the lighter colours being, of course, less of a risk. But as you can see, as an overall from the map itself, it's a really good indicator as to sort of, you can see that the majority of England and Wales are pretty much covered with subsidence, and the southeast as a whole really are the more darker red areas. And what we can do with that is really break that down then into numbers. The best way to describe it, this was probably like the hottest period in the UK for the last sort of few years, should we say, and it was in July to September 2018, and 64 million was the total cost of substance claims in that 3-month period, and also there being way more than 10,000 substance claims also in that period. And what we actually estimate that is to be that within sort of the total cost of the economy over the last decade, and this was only up to 2018, is estimated around £3 billion. So you can really see that the more we go on each year on year, and obviously as the weather's changing, and again with climate change, that these numbers will probably more than likely increase. And again, just shows you that the issues that the properties and areas do have, and the southeast in particular. Another thing for the southeast is chalk mining. So I've got a couple of sort of case studies here. This first one being in Reading, so it's local to myself and based in Reading. This is a 19th century chalk mine collapse, originally in 2000, that when the actual collapse. However, the reason I wanted to go over this was because it actually took 10 years before a 4.3 million project was to begin to complete support and really help stabilize the homes in the areas. So you can see, because there was so much investigation work needed, that it took a whole 10 years before there was any sort of like concrete remedial work carried out. And the reason for that was that in the area in particular, they were estimated to be around 30 abandoned chalk mines underneath the ground. And again, unfortunately at the time that these weren't carried out in relevant searches. So again, even back when it did happen, it was obviously a big shock to the area itself, but of course something that we can now interpret and something to be aware of. Then moving on to Pinner Hill School, again something that you've probably seen in the news. You can see these articles all from BBC, but in July 2015, 11-foot wide and 6-foot deep hole suddenly appeared in the car park of the Pinnerwood Primary School. What it actually was, that preliminary sort of investigations determined that the hole to be caused by a chalk mine shaft. The school was temporarily closed, with obviously all classes relocated, and the reason for that, in the meantime, that they were carrying out geotechnical surveys, which were to be assessing basically the stability of the land beneath the school as a collective. And then eventually the surveys revealed that the presence of the previously uncharted, should I say, chalk mine dating back to the 19th century again, approximately was 65 foot below the school buildings. So you can really see the vast areas that these can cover up. But thankfully, remediation work took place, and obviously the school reopened 9 months later, thankfully after the remediation. But what the panic was at the time that they did think that due to the sheer size of it, obviously 65 foot below the school buildings, they did feel that that was going to be shut and obviously cause major issues for the area as a whole, as you can imagine, trying to relocate everyone. And this, it very much continues. So, and again, obviously, climate change will have a big impact on that. So with obviously the risks that it causes to property, and as I say, with substance as a whole, it's a really big one, obviously in the southeast in London. But then obviously also a bit wider, so even Leigh-on-Sea, this was substance due to the trees in the area, they're all collapsing down, and actually just beneath there was the road face that the road goes along that road. So you can see the issues that that's having, again, from adverse weather and the ground and how it's causing it, and obviously the colder, wetter winters and the warmer summers that we're having. You can really see the issue that we're going to continue to face very much moving forwards. And you can probably see that most of it probably weekly in the news, if not at least monthly. In certain areas, so you can really see the impact this is having and will continue to have moving forwards. And then again, just to bring that into an overview for you, this is all the sort of the minerals that are mined obviously throughout the country, the greys obviously being the more ones that we're aware of, which is obviously the coal mining areas. But of course, as I just touched on with the south here, you can see the chalk mines that really runs all the way up in a vast area. Of course, it's a worst case scenario. These are just the more common areas that these occur. But again, just really showing you the importance to carry out these certain checks prior to when you're ordering the standard set of searches that you usually do. And again, just to make your clients aware, and I suppose from a compliance perspective, being able to show your due diligence on that front. And then moving on to Wales as a whole, see that there's a lot in Wales that I probably could cover, but I thought the big one to go over was just a case study around sort of the coastal hazards. Again, something that we very much like to focus on. And I thought the case study was one that actually happened towards like the middle of last year, should we say, which was Neffin Beach landslide in North Wales. A lot of you may have seen the videos where you've got the lady walking with her dog along the beachfront here, in which she had to literally run back, grab her dog and run along the beach because it was actually the landslide was happening as she was walking in the morning. And the cliff fall here was up to actually 40 meters, so 131 feet down, as you can see the events afterwards of what it had left. The area itself is very much prone to landslides, but obviously never of this magnitude. It was the biggest one to date. But I mean, even if you look along the cliff edge here, so you can see obviously the houses here, but it drops down, and how you can see it's eroded over time all the way along, as it's not flush. So you can really see the issues that this area has. And that was due to other landslides happening in the area. So you had one again in January 2001, which was a landslide again occurred on the same front here, which actually a series of sort of slides of the landslide swept 2 cars over the cliff edge and onto the beach below. Tragically, in this instance, or in that instance, one of the occupants actually killed and another seriously injured in the incident. And then again, between sort of August 2000 and February 2001 was obviously one of the wettest recorded periods for this region. So you can really see why the landslide happened in that area, and again, how weather is affecting these as we move on. And with 1.5 times the long-term average of rainfall in that same period, which obviously contributed massively to the landslide that happened. We then had obviously April 2021, in which the landslide took land from the bottom of the holiday homes in Rotherham Moor, which again causing damage and obviously disruption in the area. And then again, even just a couple of months, a few months ago now, in October 2021, the main road was actually affected by the landslide after heavy rain. So again, causing numerous issues there. But I suppose the big one for this is that the geology in the area is that it's very like variable glacial. and you've got lots of sort of fluid glacial deposits, which is like clay, silt, sand, and gravel. So you can really see that when the weather, and you've got really wetter sort of months or days, that weeks on end that are happening, you can really see that these types of sorts of ground material are very prone to landslides, and will soak up that weather, and the weather will really make it cause the various landslides that are happening. But the big one for this is that Neffing coastline is sort of, I suppose the question is, why is it so prone to the landslides that continue to keep happening? They've actually continued what occurred along this same coastline approximately for the last sort of 11,500 years. So a massive amount of time, of course, last year being the biggest one in the case study that I've just shown you on the image above. But the issue with that is because the landslide mechanisms along the coastline are driven by the variable glacial, so the poor grounding essentially. So when the weather does impact it, essentially just washes out the coastline, and will continue to do so, unfortunately, in this instance. But as you can imagine, the property value, I think one was estimated to be around 2.4 million. And as you can imagine now, with half the garden taken off, you can really see the issue that that house now has when it comes to selling, of course, if it can sell, of course. And again, very much continues along many coastline above England and Wales. And the big one for that now is even moving forwards. Obviously, the big talking point is climate change. And you can imagine that with climate change, Neffing Beach will become even more exposed over the time. So obviously the extreme climate events, such as obviously heavy rainfalls, are forecast as we move forward into the sort of the winter months, and also rising sea levels, which will increase erosion, of course. And obviously past changes in the climate can be linked, obviously, to these certain landslides, and again, will continue as we move forwards. And as I touched on, it's various coastlines up and down England and Wales. These will continue. These are various news articles in the last sort of couple of years that have really sort of impacted various homes up and down the country. And as I touched on with climate change now, it will continue to do so, whether that be flooding, landslides, and obviously coastal erosion. It will all come into one and really cause issues up and down the country. And again, just breaking that down into numbers for you all, is that 641,000 properties within 250 metres of the coast within England and Wales. We estimate 28% of the England and Wales coastline is eroding at over 10 centimetres per year. Again, doesn't sound like a lot, but as you can imagine, if I suppose a normal average sort of living time in a house is roughly around sort of like 12 years. You can imagine over that time frame, if you are living near the coastline, that's a massive impact on your property or the area itself. And that 1 billion is estimated value of UK property that will be lost to the sea over the next century, with a 70 centimetre expected sea level rise by 2100. So you can really see the impact of the erosion, landslides, storm flooding, sea level rise. It will very much continue to impact property and moving forward. So again, carrying out these various checks will be really important. And then moving on to the final area, which is the northeast. So very much known for its mining, as we all know. And then really just want to give an overview of why that is. So this is probably just a standard town sort of back then. So why properties are built above mines. So obviously hundreds of years ago, you can imagine that a small town develops around a near surface deposit, which they'll use for coal in this example. And as you can see in the diagram, the light purple area denotes sort of the coal deposits, of course, and the dark blue rectangles are the houses which make up the town, of course. And then around sort of this hypothetical town, there are mine works that consist of a mixture of various things. So one being surface quarries, which are shown in the brown, but also you've got the underground mines, which are like the dark purple area with the red dots with the mine shafts. And obviously they're all connected to the surface by various shafts and adits, which are the shown in red. And then as we move on over time, the town grows, of course. In this example, mining has obviously ceased and the coal deposit is no longer economically viable, so that the quarries have obviously been filled and the mine shafts capped. But the area of land that used to house the mine workings are already developed immediately. But over time, the mines are obviously, of course, forgotten about, which is why we have various issues now and why the coal reports are needed. And this is relatively unsurprising, obviously, considering that sort of pre-1872, it was not necessary to submit any recordings on the coal mines. So one being that they're either poorly recorded or they're just not recorded at all, which again, as I referred to, that is why we have the issues today. And then eventually developers then as we move on, want to obviously develop on the land. And obviously this leads to our final stage, which is being the current situation across obviously all of the UK, or much of the UK, should I say, where obviously houses are constructed over the previous mine workings, and that many of these properties are now at obviously severe risk of obviously mining features due to subsidence or complete collapse. And obviously what we can do then is moving on to the northeast is really sort of taking a look at what actually it looked like moving forwards. And of course, there have been several major coalfields across the northeast, obviously being Northumberland, obviously the Yorkshire coalfield as the more common ones and the common areas that people know about. But the northeast was often seen as obviously the heart of the Industrial Revolution. The last underground colliery closing in 2015 due to frequent mining-related subsidence events occurred until it closed. And very much they're still picking up on these issues now. So because of the subsidence continues, within the areas, there's still obviously due to the historic coal workings, very much the local authorities and the coal authority, etc., all working together to still sort these. And as you've seen from the image below of the various mine shafts within the area, you can really see why they had such issues. And I mean, I think the majority of the coal workers within the country and still impacts property today. With the collieries, you still got Crashter Square in Newcastle, but then you've got Kellingley, sort of North Yorkshire. The Bayfield estate being a good one, which is what I'm going to move on to now as the big case study. And again, just showing you the vast area of the coal mine workings within that area. And you can really see that why the sort of property was impacted so much within the areas and why they're still working these subsidence historical claims now. And as I touched on, something that the Bayfield estate has obviously brought up a lot. It's a good case study to use for various reasons. Obviously, the site here being developed by a large housing developer was constructed, and obviously the company took obviously initial investigations showing that the foundations of the homes were designed and constructed in accordance with building regulations. So from a developer's perspective, everything's been done by the book and they felt everything was fine. Then obviously the coal authority had to set up base on the estate itself and carried out detailed examinations for over 14 months. And what their investigation actually revealed was that the unrecorded coal mine workings, which date back to around 120 years ago, showed that the site had been extensively worked. Usually in this area, up to 45 to 50% of coal is mined. But in this case, the amount from the investigation, they actually realized that the amount of coal mined was actually over 70%. So you can really see why the estate itself had the issues. And then from that, the coal authority says that the concrete grout was pumped into the unrecorded mine workings that had collapsed under one area of the estate. And then what the grouting is allowed to be able to do then is will stabilize the ground above the estate and stop any ongoing future movement, allowing for obviously the new homes to then continue to be built. But of course, you had various issues from that. Obviously, the proposed houses, obviously 12, 14, 16, 17, 18 will be demolished just 12 months after when they initially started the build, should I say. And then again, after the remediation had been stepped in, 2017, the five homes again began to be demolished. And just 12 months after the sale to date, 18 homes have now been demolished, which then, unfortunately, after the remediation, they didn't continue to build. But again, just really showing you the extensive issues that can happen along with coal mining. But that's the main one that everyone sort of reminds of. But the big one also is that non-coal mining is a huge issue in the northeast. So what you can see from this map is indicating sort of one being sort of lead in the Pennines, then Redcar Tyneside being obviously big brine extraction areas. You've got iron mining largely also in the same area, but obviously due to sandstone and brine extraction. And then to the west, we have sandstone, slate mines, and also lead and iron in Cumbria. So again, you can see a vast area of the area itself. A lot of people just understand it to be coal mining, which, as I touched on, it's obviously the head of the Industrial Revolution at the time being in that area and obviously in the Midlands. But of course, the big ones being that non-coal mining is still also a huge issue within the area, and something that's not actually recorded within coal authority reports. And that brings me just an overview of what I've gone through there with the various ground hazards in those areas, is that it's all covered off in our ground report. But also the reason why I want to show you is because the various modules on the left-hand side here is that obviously we have the integrated Con29M. We're covering all other mining, so all the non-coal mining that's up and down the country, whether it be the southeast, what I went through with the chalk, You've then got natural ground and soil subsidence, so covering the subsidence area. And then the big one, as I touched on with the case study in Wales, being the coastal hazards. We all provide that with a full risk assessment and expert interpretation. So there's no need for you as solicitors or conveyancers to be worried. We essentially provide that information in which you can then relay that nice and clearly onto your clients. So really helping along with sort of the compliance process on that front, and keeping them fully up to speed with what's going on around their area and their property in particular they're looking to buy. And that brings me nicely to the Q&A session. As I've touched on, you can see the Q&A box at the top of your screen. I'll give everyone just a few seconds there just to feel free if they want to ask any questions. I'm more than happy to support you with that. If not, don't worry, my contact details are on screen. I can also send after, obviously, Rebecca's information as well. So if you've got any questions directly to her. And I suppose the big one for it as well is that along with all these ground hazards, is something that conveyancing data services can provide sort of hazard alerts via their ordering platform. So again, something that very much they can help support you guys with to really streamline that and make your lives easier as conveyancers and solicitors to provide this information onto your clients. I'll just give it a couple of seconds while on the Q&A to see if any questions come through. I hope I haven't scared too many of you with the various case studies. That's what I tend to get, but they are worst case scenarios, of course. There are searches available. These searches are available now to be able to cover all this off for you. No, great. It doesn't seem to be any questions coming through. Not to worry. Like I said, I'll pass my contact information on as well after this. We can send that out. And again, the recording to those that couldn't attend today. So please don't worry, we can get that sent out. And you can ask any questions. Again, a big thank you to Rebecca and Conveyancing Data Services alongside Redbrick today for allowing me to present to you all. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you in the future. And obviously, if you've got any questions, please feel free to get in touch. Thank you very much.
Really helpful. Thank you.
No, you're very welcome. Thanks, Bex.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.